What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. It is Around the VLA. This is season 3, episode 6. My name is Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago. That is Vince Zanzuki, live from Phoenix, Arizona. Vince, it's been a couple weeks. You got some catching up to do on what has been, I think it's fair to say, the busiest month in the history of the VLA. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. It's not even close to comparable.
It's been an awesome week, awesome month. It has also been an awesome week. We have had 4 events in a row to this point, 4 weekends, 4 events, and we've got one more coming up this weekend. So we will certainly get to that as we preview this weekend's Central Division Cup in Chicago. But first, we got to go back in time a little bit. We got to go back to a couple weekends ago in Phoenix. So Vince was there. Vince and his Phoenix Ascension come out on top in a very good weekend in the West Division as part of the Volleyball Festival Fiesta Classic out there at the Convention Center. I was not there, but I was watching from afar. Everything looked great. It looked like you had some great crowds. And Vince and the Ascension go 4-0, including 2 nail biter 5-set wins over the West Division rivals, the SoCal Rising Tide. So those 2 5-setters really separating Ascension and Rising Tide, but really just 2 points, 10 versus 8. And unfortunately, the West Coast Brigade, who came out up from Tier 2 to join us to play that event, didn't come away with any points. They didn't really come with the roster ready to compete in an already tight West Division. So Vince, I wasn't there. I want to hear your perspective on how that weekend event from the Phoenix side and from the VLA side.
It is a great event. I mean, just us partnering with Volleyball Festival and having the opportunity to play at that event, downtown Phoenix, the convention center. I mean, it was just a really great setup. You've been there before.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like any other convention center, and they put us right there, feature court and whatnot. And I mean, it was a really, really good vibe. It's really awesome to start seeing, since this is our 3rd year in a row going and playing at that volleyball festival. Really cool to see all the returning faces and the young athletes who are following us, through obviously Instagram and everything like that. But I mean, just the ones that would come up and say, "Hey, remember me for last year?" And and it was great. It's really cool to see, all the returning faces and everyone who's kind of supported us all this time. So I was really happy about just the event itself, and always great to be in front of our hometown fans.
Yep, great. Everybody loves a home event. I certainly love having one for myself this coming weekend, and just these convention center events that we base so much of our schedule around are just so awesome. I never get tired of exposing a brand new part of the country and a brand new like group of people, like thousands of people who are already there with volleyball at the front of their minds, and they just get to watch a brand new level and a brand new product. And it is really cool to retain some of those fans and get them coming back year over year. So that's great to hear from the event side. Yeah, huge shout outs to the Volleyball Festival. We love their support.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving into the matches for the weekend. The first one start off with us and Rising Tide, and I mean, just it was a phenomenal match. I mean, just through and through. Madison Hayden, I gotta give a huge shout out to the other side of the net, obviously, because Madison Hayden was an animal. Both days really. I mean, he just was unreal. And but everyone from the Rising Tide played really well. Obviously, our Ascension team played extremely well through and through, getting the four victories. But I mean, it was Rising Tide was definitely better. No offense, Rob, but better than the squad that they brought last. I mean, fairly legit. I mean, bringing one of the best outside hitters in the league. With Madison Hayden, day 2 they had KJ showed up, and he was able to play. Owen Chun was able to play, and so we actually faced a much stronger Rising Tide team that second day. And the fact that we came out with the exact same result says a lot about how my guys were able to kind of respond and adjust.
Yeah, and I know you were missing a handful of guys. Like Sam Haggard got married and had a handful of your roster a part of his big day, and still with that, you were able to pull enough from all the various pools of talent in Greater Phoenix and Greater Arizona and put a pretty good squad out on the floor. So from what I was looking at from afar, I was impressed by both teams. And yeah, like we've been saying, ever since the Rising Tide won that West Division Cup about a month ago in San Diego, they're basically playing with house money the rest of the season. They're already guaranteed to make the Tier 1 championship tournament. They'll obviously come into the VLA Cup with trying to win that one as well. But as far as the regular season goes, they have absolutely no pressure. They are They already know they're playing in the playoffs because of that one cup win. They don't really like need to win any of those regular season matches, but it was cool to see them bring a very good team and still put a great foot forward and a good product out there. And those two 5-setters were everything we could have asked for from that event, at least from those two teams' perspectives. So that was great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And for just our perspective from Ascension, I mean, those were 5-setters that we are very proud of winning. I mean, again, we've seen various representations of Rising Tide throughout the years, and this was definitely the most legit one that they brought to Phoenix. And like I said, you got Chris Johnson, Owen Chun, Madison Hayden, Brandon Directo, like those four alone could pretty much start for any team in the league. So, we were really happy to put on a really good performance and come out on top of those because, Rising Tide's really, us being division rivals and everything like that. They've kind of had the better of us for a while, and being able to kind of even out that series overall, like in total 4-4 in our history was really, really something I felt like. A big confidence booster for us moving forward.
Awesome. Yeah. So those clearly were the two featured matches of the weekend. The rest of them featuring the West Coast Brigade just weren't quite as competitive as maybe we were hoping for. I know Brigade's dealt with a lot of roster turnover and issues with consistency, and we were hoping that, like the league was hoping, they would be a little bit more deep and able to play 4 matches in a weekend and put on a little bit better of a showing. And there were flashes of good volleyball in there, but again, it's the learning curve of the VLA that we always talk about that they just weren't quite ready for. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, and it's not that they didn't field a really solid roster, because they actually did. They brought some really good players. Both their outside hitters were extremely dominant. I mean, for set 2, I mean, we didn't have an answer for him on day 1. I mean, he completely lit us up, and but the on the flip side of that, it's that they only brought 8 guys, and it's impossible to win 4 matches in a weekend with 8 guys, and it's just that you have to bring it nonstop the entire time. You can't let up on any of the teams in the VLA. If you do, you're going to struggle. And that's kind of, I think, what happened with Brigade is that they just were understaffed and came into it, played well to start, but then, really just didn't have that same intensities, particularly near the end of the event.
It's so hard to do that. You just can't have 8 guys in one event like that and play 4 or 5 set or 4 best of 5s and still keep your level the same from match 4 to match 1. Just so hard to do. So definitely a learning experience for them. And the rest of the West division of Tier 2 looking at that and probably being pretty happy that the Brigade came in there with an extra opportunity to get points and walked away with 0.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams gunning for that Tier 1 spot, especially with it being so much closer than the other two divisions. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of teams were rooting against Brigade in this aspect. I don't think that anyone was hoping that Brigade would go and beat either Rising Tide or Ascension, getting those extra points. So I'm pretty sure that. We won those for Tier 2, right? But yeah, no, I mean, but at the same time, nothing against Brigade. Brigade are in that spot, or in that, they were the team had the most potential moving forward, and so it made sense to have them there. It's not like we would have, reached out to anybody else really. I mean, them being the top team looking to get promotion, so it's good to give them the opportunity. But now that they see kind of what it's like playing Tier 1 in the West Division against us and Rising Tide, it's something that a team is going to have to really step up if they're going to perform well against us.
If you're looking to join Tier 1 in the West Division, you're going to be playing 8 matches in a year, 4 each against the Ascension and the Rising Tide. And if you don't want to sign up for that, it would be hard to blame you. But in that case, you're probably not ready for getting promoted to Tier 1 in the West Division. So here are the West Division Tier 2 standings as they stand right now. So Brigade went in there with 16 points. So they got 3 from the West Division Cup only, no more, and they still have 16 points and a whole lot of teams below them trying to nip at their heels to get that spot. And let's check out the Tier 1 standings as well. Let's go with the overall. So we still got Rising Tide at the top. Not only do they have the cup win, but they barely have the points per matches played advantage. Vince's Ascension phenomenal win-loss record. 10 points instead of maybe a possible 12, but playing Rising Tide twice, you probably can't be too upset with 10 points. I would
Probably
say
not.
anything above 2 points per match is played is going to be pretty darn good and hard to top as far as making the playoffs goes. So Ascension through 2 events, and Rising Tide, we already know they've got the cup win, but Ascension 7-1 and 19 points through 2 events. That number is looking pretty nice right about now. And we'll certainly talk about the rest of the standings in the other 2 events. But anything else about that West Division event in Phoenix, Vince, before we move on?
No, just again, a huge shout out to Volleyball Festival for continuing to support the VLA and everything that they do for us. And a huge shout out to the Phoenix fans who were out there supporting us through and through. I mean, there was never a time where we were playing and eyes weren't on our court. So give everyone from Phoenix that's been supporting us a huge shout out because they definitely deserve it.
Awesome. Yeah, and you guys put on the show that the fans deserved. So great work. Another box check for a successful event. So that was event number 3 of 5 in a row in this run. And now we got to talk about the 4th event of 5 in a row in this run. That was this past weekend in Boston. So VLA goes coast to coast again. Only 2 weeks after the first regular season event in Boston, we went, or in on the East anyway, that was in Connecticut. We went right back to the East Coast, this time to Boston. USA Volleyball sponsored Boston Volleyball Festival, gigantic convention center event. I think there was something like 80 courts between like the huge juniors tournament and also an adult tournament, like an adult open registration tournament that was going on too. And so we were the featured court in that up in Boston, same format as a couple weeks ago in Connecticut. And that is where the similarities ended. The results couldn't have been more opposite. It was absolutely amazing to see the turnaround from the Northeast Force. The Northeast Force, who went 0-4 in Connecticut, totally turns it around. They win the weekend at 3-1. Conversely, Team LVC, the reigning champs, who started off 4-0 and have completely owned this division, they struggled hugely with their setter position and ended up finishing only 1-3. So now this division in the East is way more competitive than we ever thought it was going to be. Separated by only 3 points total and 2 wins total through 3 events. This was the probably the most dramatic regular season event of the year so far.
Yeah, no, it was it showed a lot of parity with the teams. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, LVC has escaped for a long time with just being able to put anybody out there on the floor and being successful. It was a really good thing, I think, for Force and Bounce to get the ones that they did against them because you don't want to let your division rival be able to field anybody and get victories against you, you know. And so obviously, I think that LVC is still with their general roster the clear favorite in this division. I don't think, you know, any little bit they were still able to take a win. They still got to win, you know, with the team that they got, you know. So you know, and of course Jordan Vargas was there. They had Dave Evans, you know, both all VLA players last year. But like you said, the setter position was very much in question. I believe Hughesman was setting at the end of that, and
Yeah,
you know,
that was wild.
yeah, you know, and it's not like he can't, you know, he can't play. This is, you know, a professional level event. It's really tough to put someone who's a middle opposite into, you know, go fill that role. And not saying he didn't do a good job. He gave him a chance, you know.
Did.
But the fact of the matter is that, you know, you just can't win in those circumstances. And it showed. And Force did a good job of closing out LVC once, Bounce twice, you know, and that's huge for them because they, I feel, have been really battling with Bounce for that second spot. You know, I really feel like LVC is going to continue to dominate it, but at least Force at this point is able to really show that they also belong with Bounce and, you know, maybe fighting for a playoff spot down the road. So, you know, it was huge for the division to, you know, really mix things up that way. But again, coming out of it, I still feel like LVC is going to be in control of this division.
Agreed. I mean, they didn't have the reigning MVP in Joby Ramos, and last time we were talking about this division, we were just gushing about how good he is and how important he is. And I don't think his value has ever been more clear than now. What LVC dealt with without him. I mean, the one match that they won, like Saturday morning against the Northeast Force, they picked up Matt Grace, who's a setter from SUNY New Paltz, who just happened to be there at the event coaching a team, and that was the only match he was able to play like on like last second notice, and he played phenomenally well, and LVC looked like a totally different team. And other than that, the 3 matches they lost, they had huge question marks at setter, could never get it going, despite Spencer Wickens being there, who might be pound for pound the best player in the VLA. Like, that's how good that kid is at 6 foot nothing as a six rotation outside hitter. He's absolutely amazing. And still, with him and Evans and Jordan Vari and good middles, only 1 and 3 for Team LVC. So the importance of the setter position, very, very clear there. To talk about the Northeast Force, obviously after they went 0-4, they had to have an event like this to even be a remote factor in the playoffs. But what I was really impressed is not only did they add some wing firepower, they get Trevor Weiskircher, who's got plenty of VLA experience, great size, and they bring in this Evan Lindley kid, a Chicago kid who played at NYU. So that was the connection. A lefty on the right side, and he was hitting angles that people were not used to defending against when he played at the Northeast Force. Even like just being a lefty, it even looked different than when Nick Hunt is there playing for them. And not only did they add those guys, the Force did a phenomenal job managing their roster. They did such a good job manipulating their lineups, choosing the right guys to start matches, and making moves within matches with their lineup at the right moments to keep the level high and to keep guys fresh. They did such a good job of that. I was so impressed. And they even hung in there pretty well in the LVC match that they lost when LVC actually had a setter. But to get 2 wins over Bounce, both for 3 points, was a season-defining event for the Northeast Force. So I was impressed with their pickups, but more so, I'm impressed with the way that team has learned how to have success at the VLL level. So good for them; they deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving forward, they're in a good spot because now they have only 2 cup events left.
Right.
They don't have a regular season where they're forced to play LVC and Bounce, and so now they have the opportunity to go and grab some victories against tier 2 teams. Kind of what Ascension and Rising Tide have already done. You know, we've had that opportunity where we can go and play against some of those teams and you know, build up our points. Now it's basically their turn in April to have that opportunity to go and play against in the East Division Cup. And you know, and that's generally where the 3 teams can really pull the most out of it, you know, out of an event without it affecting each other, because obviously when they're playing each other, they're losing those, you know, potential points. When they're playing other teams, they're able to just kind of stack those up. So it puts Force in a good position. If they can continue to play well and play the way that they did this past weekend, they have a good shot to finish pretty deep into that event. Maybe get another, you know, 9 points, 10 points, and you know, they could be looking pretty good for moving forward.
Agreed. And to talk about the Boston Bounce, the hosts of the event, I thought Jeff Vautrin and his guys did a really good job hosting. What they didn't do as good of a job was managing their roster, and that's kind of been the thing that we've talked about with that team. Their top level, it was clear to me. I don't know about you, Vince, from watching from afar, but it was clear to me that Boston's approach for this event was to play their best guys against Team LVC, and they did that both days, and it worked. They won both matches, which was huge because they had been waiting for years to get those wins over Team LVC. They capitalized on chances with a weaker edition of Team LVC, and they played their best guys in those matches. But the 2 matches that Bounce played against the Northeast Force were not good at all. The combinations of guys that they used, it was as if they were just punting those matches, taking the Force for granted, and putting all their chips on the table for the LVC matches. And that worked in the sense that they beat LVC, but then they got no points against Force in 2 opportunities. And so again, like another event, Boston goes 500. It's like they beat the inverted teams than we're used to seeing them beat, but it's kind of the same thing. We know that this team, when they play their starting 7, can be really, really good, but when they mess around with their lineup so much and take another team in their division for granted, they lose 2 matches and get no points out of it. It's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely, because I feel like they would have had a little bit more success going after Force, and then obviously with the team that Team LVC had. You know, I get you don't want to play with fire, but at the same time, you're pretty much putting yourself in a position where you're equal with the team that you should be above. And so I just feel like they should have really focused a little bit more on those Force matches, and perhaps a little less, since LVC had the lead that they had in the division. I mean, yeah, they're tied with points, but I mean, moving forward, I feel like LVC just has the bigger upside. They
Oh, for
Bounce could have
sure.
jumped on top of this division and gone 4-0, and now they're sitting pretty. They probably even at a point where they can be straight into clinch a playoff berth. So it's just it was an interesting decision to go the way that they did. I agree. I think that they definitely put all the chips on the table to play and beat LVC. But at the same time, you got to have that depth. And some of those guys on that second group, you play them against Force. Well, if they can't beat Force, then that's telling of what your guys have. They gave the opportunity to them. They didn't come through. They didn't finish off the matches. So I think that will say a little bit more about how Bounce will proceed. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that even with Ascension side, I mean, we have guys that are prepared for 2 matches a weekend, and they produced, and everyone
Right.
has been producing for us. So Bounce kind of needs that. They can't have 7. You can't have 7 guys. You got to have 12 guys, 14 guys that can produce at any given time.
And you can't just play the starting 7 and then the non-starting 7 and expect the same result. I thought that's what Force did really well. I couldn't really name for you what their starting 7 really is because they mixed it in with one another so well and kept the level of their team at like probably 90-95% of their potential. I think that's kind of what you have to do. We saw about 100% of Bounce's potential in those 2 LVC matches, but then we saw like 40% of their potential in the 2 Force matches, and that's the learning curve. That's what we're talking about. If you've got guys that are new and younger and need experience, regular season matches are not the time to throw those guys out there and see what they can do. That is like a pool play and a cup tournament. That is the time when you're playing tier 2 teams. That's the time to roll out your new guys and see what they've got, not when you're playing a Northeast Force team who had their backs against the wall. So,
Right.
but Force gets all the credit. Again, they were the best team this weekend. They played great. They managed the roster extremely well, and no pun intended, but they're kind of a force in this division now that people have seen the level that they can play at.
Yeah, absolutely. And and backtracking just slightly on that, with the roster management, I think that Bounce needs to really focus on what their objectives are. If their objective is just to beat LVC, well, then they're going to turn around and lose to the Force. And they got to see a little bit more of the big picture moving forward. And I think that again, they're still a fresh team in the VLA, only their second season in Tier 1. So I mean, they'll figure those things out. It's just when is the time to do it? And like you said, I think maybe Cup event is more the time than it is than a regular season where you got 2 teams that are jockeying for the same position as you.
Yeah, and so the East Division Cup coming up in about a month is going to be really interesting because Boston, if you remember last year, went into Buffalo, had a golden opportunity to win that tournament because, again, it was sort of a weaker LVC team. Bounce got to the final, no problem, and then lost to Team UCV, who then became the Cleveland Kong. So Bounce had a great chance there, didn't quite manage their roster well in that one, and I'm curious to see what they do going into this East Division Cup in about a month. But we'll have plenty of time to preview that. First, Vince, I think it's time. Ready to talk about this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it. So, coming up this weekend is just nothing. Just only the biggest tournament the VLA has ever had. Just another weekend for us. So the fifth of 5 weekends in a row. It is a 20-team monstrous event, the Central Division Cup in Chicago. Remember, last year's VLA Cup was 19 teams, and this year's Central Division Cup is 20. It's absolutely insane how much the league has grown. We've got 20 teams in 4 pools of 5 coming into my home city this weekend. It is going to be absolutely ridiculous, and there's plenty to break down about this tournament. So we posted this on Instagram last night, just like the overview of the teams that are showing up and the pools and the seeds, and we'll break all that down a little bit more. Vince, how do you want to start this thing? You want to talk about like kind of the tournament format first, I suppose?
Yeah, let's talk about the tournament format, and then we can break into the pools and discussion of that.
All right, cool. So as with most VLA Cup Series tournaments, it's this week we got a 2-day event coming up this weekend, March 4th and 5th. Pool play followed by bracket play. That's pretty typical. But with 5 teams in a pool, it's important to point out kind of how the pool structure works. So this is similar to how the AVP, I think, runs some of their pool play. And so that we don't have to run a round robin with 5 teams, which would be 10 matches, which would be ridiculous. We don't have time to do all that. We run this little 5-team bracket pool format. So The way it works is each pool of 5 teams will have 5 matches. The first one is the 4 seed versus the 5 seed. Big one there. Winner of that plays the 1 seed. On the other side of that little bracket is the 2 seed versus the 3 seed. And then there's a placement match later between that 2-3 loser against the 1 versus 4-5 loser. That match decides third, and the loser gets fifth. Obviously, the match of the winners of those little semifinals is for first and second, but the loser of the team that advances to play the 1 seed, the loser of that match gets fourth in the pool. So if that's confusing as I speak about it, I think the visual is a lot more clear. So the visual is a great sort of picture of this 5-team bracket pool format. It's also all on the website, which we'll take a look at in a second. But the keys here, especially for a tournament like this that has 20 teams, there will be 16 teams that make it to the bracket. Only the 5th place teams from each pool will not make it to the bracket. So for those 4 and 5 seeded teams, they really have their eyes set on those first matches of the tournament. Early Saturday morning, those 4 versus 5 games to advance. The worst you can do at that point, if you win that match, the worst you can do is 4th. You still make the bracket at that point. So that's going to be key for every team. You do not want to get 5th in your pool. If you do that, you miss out on the bracket. Any other outcome, and you at least still get a chance on Saturday night to keep playing for the championship. So I think that's a good way to frame it. 20-team tournament, only 16 teams make the championship bracket. You got to get at least top 4 in your pool to move on.
Yep, and then point out also that the all 4 pools will send a 5th place team to a silver bracket.
Right.
Where play out their the silver bracket for them. So, but again, everyone's going there for the cup, not for silver bracket. So, again, very important 5th, 4th place match right there, 5th seed, 4th seed, huge opportunity there, and then huge opportunity to steal a match against a number 1 seed right there, and claim that higher spot, which we actually saw happen in the VLA Cup last year twice.
We did, yeah. Emiola did it. And who's the other one?
A team beat Rising Tide and a team beat Pineapple.
Emiola beat Pineapple. I remember that for sure. I can't.
No. Sorry, LVC got to the finals. It was Rising Tide lost to another team. Or no, not Rising Tide. Sorry, Sport Connects. Sport Connects lost it.
That's right. Sport Connects lost it. It might have been Ruckus. I don't remember that. That was
no. It wasn't Ruckus. I think it was Dive.
That's it. So yeah, that similar format to some of the pool play of like events and structures we ran last year. So 5-team bracket pools, that'll be Saturday morning, and that'll carry us into bracket play. So with that out the way, let's take a look at the website. So all this is live on the VLA website right now. All this info about the Central Division Cup. And sort of a weird wrinkle about this tournament is that we're playing this at 2 different places. So if you want to come in person, which you absolutely should, please do. But there will be 2 different sites, one for pool play and then another for Saturday afternoon bracket and then Sunday morning bracket. So that'll be the College of DuPage where this tournament was hosted last year. But there was like a last minute unforeseen scheduling conflict that the VLA couldn't possibly have predicted that made us scramble and find this second venue for pool play Saturday only. And that's this gym called the Illinois Basketball Academy. Tim Faulkner of the Chicago Icemen, who's helping run this tournament, went and took a look at it the other day. It actually looks really nice. So as far as last second venues go, this is going to be a really good one for pool play. It's got 4 beautiful courts, plenty of space, good high ceilings, great floor conditions. So it'll be a very good venue for the VLA. It'll just be a little bit weird that pool play will be played at this gym called the Illinois Basketball Academy in the suburb of Naperville. And then the rest of the tournament, as soon as pool play is over, we'll head to the College of DuPage, maybe 15 minutes away, College of DuPage in the west suburb of Glen Ellen. And as soon as we're ready to go for bracket play, we will get set up at COD and play the rest of the tournament there. So if you need any more info on that, it is on the website. Spectators are absolutely welcome. You can get tickets at the door of either venue. Just show up for whatever matches you want to watch, and we would love to have you watch some of this volleyball. But there will be 2 different gyms for this tournament, which I think is a first for us. So sorry if that's confusing, but all the info you need should be right here.
Yeah, difficult situation. Obviously, the basketball of College DuPage making the playoffs and advancing a few more rounds than they were expecting. Congrats to them, I guess. But it does put a little bit of a wrench in our outline for this tournament. But we roll with the punches, and we'll make the best of it for sure.
Yeah, we'll make the best of it. It'll still run pretty much on the same schedule as it would have before. It'll actually be kind of nice to have a definitive little buffer at the end of pool play for everyone to get out of IBA, drive to COD, and restart the tournament over there. So another thing that's important to point out about this tournament, and this is kind of the way that all VLA Cup Series tournaments are going to go for both players and live spectators and for people watching online. After the first match of the day on Saturday morning, there will not be any set guaranteed start times for any matches. That's because there are so many matches that we have to play, 5 matches in pool play, then 3 bracket matches after that on Saturday. That's 8 matches in a day. That's crazy. Because of the variable length of matches, some of them go 3, some of them go 5, some of them take like an hour 10, some of them take 2.5 hours. You never really know. It's impossible for us to guarantee the start time of a match. So the way it's going to work is the courts that you're playing on are set. Those will not move. But teams have got to be ready to go, and fans have got to be a little bit flexible in following along, because as soon as a match on a court ends, the 30-minute warm-up for the next match starts right away. So whether a match ends in 1 hour or 2.5 hours, that next match warm-up time starts right away, and 30 minutes after that is first serve of the next game. So that is the only way that we can run these tournaments to have them finish remotely on time. That is the way it's going to work. So down at the bottom of the website page here is this schedule grid, and this tells you everything about what teams, what courts, who's working the games, but it won't tell you exact times of the matches. That's because there aren't any. 30-minute warm-up starts as soon as the previous match is over, and we'll get things going right away. So that is kind of the situation as far as match timing goes. If you're there on site, it'll be pretty easy to follow. If we'll be keeping it updated on the website as much as we can, and it'll be live going on YouTube all day. So it should be decently easy enough to follow along with, but it's important to note no guaranteed match times on Saturday after the first match in the morning. Vince, anything to add to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, but obviously point out that, all the information is on the website, usavla.com. So go check that out and follow along as best you can. And then obviously everything's going to be on the YouTube channel. So make sure you have that membership, and we'll have everything running here.
Yep. So go to the website, take a look at this schedule grid that we put out. I think it's a good picture of kind of how the tournament is going to run. Basically, 5 matches of pool play on Saturday at IBA in Naperville. Then there will be a break for transportation just to get everyone over to COD and start the bracket matches as soon as possible. So bracket-wise, remember 16 teams make the bracket. 4 teams will play in the silver bracket. That first round will have the 2 silver bracket matches and also 2 of the championship bracket matches. Then 4 bracket matches in the next block, and then the remaining 2 bracket play-in matches in the last block, and that'll do it for Saturday. So that is it for Saturday. 8 blocks of matches. Going to be a lot of volleyball at 2 different sites. It'll just be constant nonstop volleyball streams. Exactly what we expect out of a 20-team tournament like this.
Yeah, it's exactly what we want out of a 20-team tournament.
Absolutely,
more volleyball, the better. That's what we want.
So looking ahead to Sunday, the next schedule grid on Sunday, because there's a lot less matches to play, it's a lot more predictable. Let me zoom in on this a little bit more. There we go. This should look a little bit better. So Sunday, there's only 3 blocks of bracket matches, and then after that will be the championship match. And this one, we can at least target exact start times. We might have to push these back if the previous matches go long, but they won't go earlier than what's listed. And that is the quarterfinals will all be at 8 a.m. Central on Sunday morning, all of this at COD. Then there will be a round of consolation games at 10 a.m. Central. Then the 2 semifinals and 2 silver bracket matches at noon Central. And then we will rearrange the court. Their COD is an awesome setup. It's got these 4 courts and the 2 in the middle. You can take down the curtain. You can turn it sideways and have like a big, beautiful, feature broadcast level court for the championship match. So 3 p.m. Central on Sunday will be the championship match. That time will not change. These times will change barely, if at all, only if previous matches go longer. So Sunday, a lot more predictable. And I know that Sunday, like Tim Faulkner and both Tim and Jordan Smith of the Chicago Swede have been working really hard on marketing this event to the local Chicago community, especially juniors clubs. I'm expecting a huge turnout of fans on Sunday at COD. And they're going to get some ridiculously good volleyball as we go from the quarterfinals first thing in the morning to the championship match in the middle of the afternoon. So much more predictable schedule on Sunday, and it's going to bring the action.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the Central Division Cup is half as good as last year, which that finals was one of the best matches of the season, it's going to be a very exciting event. So I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yep. So all this is on the website. You can go check it out for a lot more information. Last thing we got to talk about before we break down the tournament itself a little bit more is how you can follow along with it. So, like I said, you're welcome to show up as a live spectator. We encourage that if you're in the Chicagoland area. A $15 wristband will get you full access to both sites both days. All you have to do is buy that once when you show up to the door at either spot, and you'll be good to go for the weekend. So you don't have to do anything before. Just show up to the door. Cash or Venmo is totally fine. As for the broadcast, as usual with all these matches, every single match, I think there are 43 of them. Every single match will have its own dedicated stream on the VLA YouTube channel as usual. All of those would be available to members only. So pick up a membership for just 99 cents. A lot of you know the drill on this by now. That's how you've been watching matches all season long. 99 cents a month gets you every single match live and on demand for the whole season. So every single match, pool play, Saturday bracket, Sunday bracket, every match will have its own dedicated stream for members only. In addition, if you watched the West Division Cup in San Diego, we debuted the VLA all day broadcast, which was awesome. Got all four courts going on at once. I'm sitting there just like watching all four courts, switching between the camera. Very good, like 1440p, 60 FPS cameras on all four courts, switching back and forth, commentating over the ones that are closest or the most significant or the ones that are coming up to the end of sets. And just a really cool, fun, dynamic broadcast. So because of the change in venues, we won't be able to start VLA all day until Saturday afternoon when we get back to College of DuPage. So no VLA all day in the morning for pool play. That'll just be the individual match streams. But then once we get over to the main venue at College of DuPage, Saturday afternoon, then all day Sunday, we'll be running the VLA all day stream with all four courts active and switching between them and all that. So if you watch that in San Diego, that will be coming back. But unfortunately, we can't run it during pool play. Got to wait until we change until we go back to the main gym for bracket. Vince, anything else about like broadcast or media or anything like that for the people to follow along with?
No, we'll be posting links on our Instagram and Facebook, so you'll have as much as we can get the access to you. We know that sometimes YouTube can be a little bit frustrating to work with when trying to do the memberships, particularly when you're on a phone. But we'll make sure that you have all the information that you need. And when we're running the all-day VLA, obviously, then you'll have opportunities to request which match you want, and we can put a link in there for you.
Yeah.
So just be active on the live chats, and we'll make sure that you get all the information you need.
Yep. So in the description of like every single video on the VLA channel, I think is a link to join the channel as a member. It's tricky to find the button if you're on a phone, but that will work if you're on a phone if you just go into the description and click the link there. So do that. And if you ever have any questions about where to find a members only stream, the first place you should look before DMing us on Instagram or texting me or bothering Vince, or before you bother any of us about where's a match, why isn't it live, check the community tab of the VLA channel homepage. Okay. So you can do this right now. You can open a new tab in your web browser. You can go to the VLA YouTube channel, the homepage. And if you swipe over to the right a little bit, there's a tab that says community. On the community tab, we will post in order a link of every single members only stream. And then you can find them there while they're live and after the fact. Every members only live stream we will post in the community tab. So go look there before you try and reach out to us about where a match is. And if you don't find it on the community tab, there's a great chance that the match isn't happening yet because of the scheduling. So go to the community tab first before you look anywhere else for members only streams. I can't stress that enough.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Vince. I think that's enough about tournament format. I mean, it's pretty basic, really. I think it's 5-team pools. The top four out of each pool make the bracket, and we play single elimination from there on out. I think what we've got to do now is jump into the pools and talk about the teams a little bit, shall we?
Let's do it.
Fantastic. All right, let's start with Pool A. And the number one seed overall, the current Tier 1 Central Division leaders, Team Pineapple out of Northeast Indiana. They've got their 2 seed, the 630 Buddy Bears, their 3 seed, the New York Lost Travelers. So those two will play in the first round. And then the first match of the morning will be two pretty new teams. The Milwaukee Gold, which is kind of spun off of the Milwaukee Dives bench and has played some Tier 2 events this offseason, and the Midwest Mac, who rebranded from the Michigan team that played the VLA Cup last year. They've played a little Tier 2 offseason. So Milwaukee Gold versus Midwest Mac out of Southeast Michigan. They play first thing in the morning. Buddy Bears versus Lost Travelers in the 2 versus 3 game. And Team Pineapple will await the winner of those first 2 matches in the morning. So let's talk about these teams a little bit, Vince. First, Team Pineapple. We talked about it on the show. They came out of that first event of the season in the Central Division, the winners at 3-1, and kind of surprising some people. The roster that they're bringing to this weekend is even better than that one that we saw.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't say enough about what Team Pineapple was able to do in that very first event. They've had 2 months to really get in the gym and continue to work hard, and they are. You can tell the results from just the little bit of time that they had going into that very first event. I mean, I see them running away with this one. Nothing against the other teams. Obviously, we'll talk about them, but Team Pineapple's the 1 seed overall for a reason, and I think that they are in a good position to, especially with the pool that they have a good possibility to go 2-0 in this pool play.
I totally agree. I think they'll take care of whoever wins between Gold and Mac first thing in the morning. Pineapple will take care of them. Buddy Bears versus Lost Travelers, I expect to be a really good match. And the winner of that, once they get to Team Pineapple, might be a little beat up and might not have the horses to go up against Team Pineapple. And I mean, it's important to point out some of the names that they're adding. Sean Dryden is back. Second team All VLA Libero last year. He's back. Bruno Amorim da Silva, the Brazilian, is back on the right side. He was a monster at this tournament last year. We've got 3 great middles. They've got the 2 setters that we're used to seeing in Pasquale and Jake Romano. They've got Austin Neese, Tony Price, Kyle Ratty on the left sides. Pineapple will have a phenomenal starting 7, and they'll have some pieces that they can mix in. And remember, last year they won their pool at this tournament easily, including beating the Buddy Bears when they were the 630 Slunkers, but then got upset early in bracket because they didn't really know how to manage their lineup because they didn't have as many options. Now they've got the options. They've got the top level talent. They've got the depth. Team Pineapple is a legit contender to win this thing, and I think they're going to win this pool no problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just moving on from Team Pineapple, because we know what they have. They're finally able to field this roster. The additions of Austin Neese are huge. Jake Romano as well. So we saw, they just impact players right there. And so now that they have those couple of pieces, really could be all they need moving forward to just add that a little bit of depth and a little bit more firepower. They're gonna be very deadly. But moving to that second match, Buddy Bears and Lost Travelers, this is a very intriguing one for me, just because this one is kind of putting the Tier 2 format and with the way that we run the points, the seedings, everything like that. This is where this makes sense.
Yep.
Because typically, if you get a team, I know formally they that 1 through 16, whatever. Are these 2 the strongest Tier 2 teams in particularly for their rankings? Not exactly, but at the same time, they've earned this position. They earned that possibility to play against each other, to really progress into that second round against the top team. I'm excited to see this matchup. I think that they are equally dangerous to each other. They're both fighting for the same exact things with Tier 2 championships. So I'm really excited to see that matchup.
Agreed. Yeah, I think all of these 2 versus 3 matchups in all 4 pools are going to be really, really good and really dramatic in all those cases, because and a lot of the time it's teams that are approaching their tier 2 strategies differently. But I think that Buddy Bears and Lost Travelers are approaching it very similarly. They're playing a lot of events. Both of them went out to San Diego for the West Division Cup, but they're not raking in a whole ton of points at every event, but they are chipping away slowly but surely. They're playing enough volleyball to consistently gain points. They've both been in the league for at least a year. Lost Travelers have played 2 VLA Cups already, back when they were the New York Pride last year and the year before. This is the quantity and quality test for both these two teams, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Buddy Bears in particular, if you didn't see him in San Diego, their outside hitter duo of Alex Gettinger out of Pepperdine and Brady Quakenbush out of Liberty, 2 different style players. That's as good of an outside hitter duo as there might be in tier 2 anywhere, and that's a bold statement, but you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm curious what they're going to do at opposite. They've got a couple options there, but none of the guys that we saw in San Diego. They're pretty good in the middle. They've got Sam Karish back at libero, who's really good. So I like this Buddy Bears team, and I'm curious about how well the Lost Travelers from Long Island are going to travel, no pun intended, to Chicago, because when they were the New York Pride last year, they came to this tournament. They didn't bring all that deep of a roster, and they played a bunch of close games, but didn't come away with that many points. So I'm curious to see how Terrence Crossan's guys approach it this time.
Yeah, exactly. And I always got to give a huge shout out to Troy Cates for Buddy Bears.
Troy's the man. Yeah,
one of my favorite players. He's just got such a great attitude and good work ethic. It's awesome to see him play. But yeah, again, you don't really know exactly what New York team's going to be traveling. They have fluctuated a little bit throughout the years, and they could put together an amazing team. Sometimes they don't quite have it because they get it just. Guys are, have stuff going on. They can't travel from San Diego one week to, Chicago the next week, then back home. And, so, I mean, I know Lost Travelers has the potential to win matches. I think that I think they can beat the Buddy Bears, but I think Buddy Bears being on their home turf really gives them the advantage here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see Lost Travelers got a couple wild cards. Brad Schneider is an outside hitter of theirs who I saw play in San Diego, who I thought was really good. And they're pairing him across from this new guy, Henry Payne, is a guy I haven't seen play before. He started his college career at Penn State, transferred to Loyola Chicago, so kind of a home game for him, but he is a New York guy. So guy with some high-level MIVA and EIVA experience. That could be a pretty good outside hitter duo. And I already talked about the Buddy Bears outside hitter duo. That battle of that position group will be very fun to watch, and a lot on the line for those two teams. Like guaranteeing themselves top 2 in the pool is going to be massive in that first game.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, moving forward, these two teams, especially Buddy Bears right now with 12 points for the season, is leading the season for tier 2 teams. So they are in a potential position where if they can grab maybe 12 points, they may set themselves up to be in the tier 2 championships already.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they progress and how they approach this first match against Travelers.
Agreed. So I got to talk about the other two teams in this pool, not to forget about the Milwaukee Gold and the Midwest MAC. Milwaukee Gold have played a little bit this tier 2 offseason. I think their origin story, and any of the Milwaukee guys watching, correct me on this, but so the Milwaukee Dive had a big tournament, like a big offseason tournament in like September or October, maybe, that a huge number of VLA teams went up to. The Icemen, I think, no, Swede won that tournament. They beat Dive in the final. Iceman got third, I'm pretty sure. A bunch of tier 2 teams went up there, got some points from it. But the Milwaukee Dive, who are a big team with a lot of bodies, because Milwaukee's a great community, they put 2 teams in. They put Dive and they put the Dive Reserves. And that Dive Reserves team did pretty well. They enjoyed playing together so much, and they wanted each individually to get more playing time. They're like, you know what? Let's just keep this team. Let's separate. Let's make our own team, and that became the Milwaukee Gold. And so there's now 2 tier 2 teams in Milwaukee, kind of associated, but Milwaukee Gold now have their own spot in the database. They've got a couple points. They've played a little bit this offseason, and they've got some talent. I know about the Wisconsin community. I live pretty close to it. I know Ben Playstead is a monster at opposite. He's a lefty from Loyola, and I think they're just going to kind of have that same Milwaukee Dive influence in their style of being an outdoor volleyball, like grass volleyball style team. They're going to dig a lot of balls. They're going to hit great off-speed shots. They are not going to be easy to score on, and I think it's going to be an interesting style counter to the rest of the teams in this tournament. So I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, these teams are going to uh, split off from each other more and more.
Yeah, and that's great. We love that.
Exactly. It just creates more opportunities for players to play and compete, and I'm excited about what they got going on. Especially with dive progressing as fast as they are. I think kind of predicted that if they continue their path, they will be tier 1 within the next few years. And and so then what then? Well, then go continue to play tier 2 events and have them matter, and it's just it's a really good situation for both teams, not having to twist the dive's arm to play certain players at certain times, and then Gold obviously very capable, very solid team, no reason that they can't go out and surprise some teams here.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say they're quite ready to beat Team Pineapple, but as far as making the bracket, maybe winning a game or grabbing a good handful of points, I could definitely see it. So their opponent in the first game, the Midwest Mac, MAK, named after the Mackinac Island Bridge. I know a little about this, having lived in Michigan for about 3 years. I know a handful of these guys. Good crew. Michigan is an underrated volleyball community, given that they didn't have high school boys volleyball in Michigan at all until the last 2 or 3 years. But they've got a couple NAIA Division III programs. They've got a couple good college club programs, and they've got some talent that comes from all over the place. Parker Sines is their main workhorse on offense, the son of Dave Sines, who's like our head officiating coordinator for the VLA, which is great. Parker's a good player. He can play both wings. He's a buddy of mine. So I'm excited to see him play, and a couple of the other pieces from Michigan that I have seen before from living there, and then some that I haven't. They play. There was a big tournament in Madison over the weekend. The Madison Inferno hosted a bunch of tier 2 scrimmages. Inferno was there. Columbus Crimson was there. Southside XP from Chicago was there, and then the Midwest Mac drove from Michigan to Madison and played in that as well. And I think they got a point. They got at least 1 point.
Yeah,
So
they played everyone really tough, but they did get a victory against Southside XP.
Yeah, okay. So they've got a point. They also had a carryover point from last year's VLA Cup when they played there. So Mac trying to put Michigan on the map as far as a legitimate VLA Cup Series tournament goes, and I'm excited to see him play.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so that's it for Pool A, predictable bracket format there. Gold versus Mac first thing in the morning. Buddy Bears versus Lost Travelers after that. Team Pineapple versus that first match winner, and then those placement matches afterwards. So check out the website for more detail. Let's move on, Vince, to Pool B. Pool B's got one of the perennial contenders just about any tournament they play in, the Chicago Icemen. But I love this pool draw because at this very tournament last year that the Icemen went into as favorites, they were upset in pool play by none other than the River City Flow, who they draw again as their 2 seed. So the chance that that might be the championship match in this pool is very likely, and I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. But good thing that will play into Iceman's benefit on this one is that they will get a match before playing them. I'm pretty sure Flo upset them in the first match of the weekend.
Yes, that's right.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it does take a minute. I know that, Iceman being the host of the event and everything, they have a lot on their plate to get things up and running, So sometimes when you're running that first match, you're just getting focused on a few other things, and then you're trying to run into the match, right? I think Iceman getting the opportunity to have things just up and going, be available, out, prepared, focused on their next match. I think it's a good opportunity for them to actually do well in a pool play, because all the cups that they've ever played in haven't really done amazing in the pool play. VLA Cup last year, they did all right, but even still lost a set to Midwest Mac. So I think that they don't traditionally do amazing in these, but I think that this could be the one where they really could step up and perform.
I think it could be the one too. I think that they're sick of losing tournaments like this. We've talked about it on the show a bunch the last year or two, that the Chicago Icemen underperform against tier 2 teams. It's a fact. They have a very bad record against tier 2 teams as far as tier 1 teams go, and they've got a pretty good draw here with a winnable pool. I mean, River City Flow is very, very good, but Icemen top to bottom are among the best teams in the league. You could easily make a case for them to win this tournament if they've got everybody that I think they're going to have. So they've got this is sort of a prove it chance here for the Chicago Icemen. They need to win this pool to kind of silence some of that conversation around their inability to do so in the past and just put themselves in the bracket with a great position. Because getting a one seed, like winning your pool, you get to take on a fourth place team in the first round of the bracket. That is a very good draw to at least get to Sunday's quarterfinal. The Icemen need that. They need to make their bracket journey as easy as they can.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that we've talked about the issues with depth on the outside. I think that will be a factor if they don't make it as easy as possible by winning their first pool. So again, yeah, I think that I agree with you. They do need to, and not saying other teams don't. I just think that other teams have the luxury of being able to depend on their depth. Like Team Pineapple, for example, I think can really depend on the depth on the pins, where Iceman doesn't have that liberty.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll get Will Kraft sparingly at this tournament. I know he's got a busy coaching season as the head coach of Dominican, a D3 team here in Chicago, but I do think they're expecting him to play at least one day, if not both, and that will really, really help. Icemen, the one seed, I think they've got a great chance to win this pool. It's not going to be easy, though. The River City Flow, the 2 seed, I think are the other main contender in this pool. Flow will not have Sam Albus, their manager and their normal stud on the right side, as he's coaching Lees McRae, but they do have a pretty darn good roster otherwise. Nick Drucker is coming. He is most underrated setter in the tournament for sure, if not just the straight up best. This guy is so good. And they've got some pretty good wing talent. Wing talent, I'm actually not quite so sure about. I don't know the names as well, but middle blocker talent is definitely there. Graham Gresham, Nestor Payne, got good libero options, got some guys that can play both libero or outside hitter, keep some ball control up. But I'm curious about where Flow is going to go for their scoring. Without Sam on the right side, I'm really curious to see where their offense kind of comes from.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that Flow, obviously Sam Elvis is kind of the heart of that team for sure. When he's on the floor, I mean, he can just produce nonstop. But he's not going to be for this one or the East Division Cup, so they really need to figure out some answers for that. I actually think that playing against Madison Inferno, even though they went 6-0 last week, I still feel that River City Flow has a little bit favorable matchup there.
Definitely agree.
And I mean, not saying that you sleep on Inferno, because they can definitely win matches, but at the same time, Flow is one of those teams where, I mean, if they're playing tier 1 right now, they're in a mid-range team, a mid-level team. So I think that I just think that the quality that they can produce, they have a little bit of depth this year, where previous years they were really running 8-9 guys. I think that having that 11-man roster is a little bit better. So I like Flow in this matchup first, but again, you can't sleep on Inferno, because they're a team that always comes to play, and I like what they do as well.
Yeah, so Inferno, the 3 seed in this pool, got a ton of bodies, and one of the teams that I would say is taking the best possible advantage of the tier 2 format, especially the offseason. These guys have played so much volleyball, and in a good way. Yeah, they went 6-0 over the weekend, picking up 6 points in best of fives that they hosted up there in Madison, which is insane. And they actually jumped over some teams in the seeding because of doing that. They've got a lot of bodies. They've got a lot of pretty good quality. Jake Oberbrunner is a very underrated setter, very, very good, big guy with great hands.
Great. I don't think that he should be underrated by any means. That guy is. I've never won a match against that guy.
Yeah, Jake is the man.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's Madison Inferno. You can't say enough about what they're doing. They are running the tier 2 correctly. I mean, if we had to say, "Hey, this is how you run it," Inferno would be that team. And
they're doing a fantastic job. They're doing such a good job, and just taking initiative and doing all that they can, all that they want to within the framework of what the VLA has set up. They're so active. I absolutely love it. So my question for them on the court is ball control. They are not historically the best ball controlling team, and they've got way more bodies in the River City Flow, but the average ball control skill on River City Flow is off the charts, especially relative to tier 2 teams, and I'm curious to see if Inferno can handle that. So that'll be a pretty good 2 versus 3 match, but I would pick Flow to advance and take on Iceman.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so let's talk about the 4-5 matchup. Teams that are relatively new. One team that's pretty much brand new. But first, let's talk about the Steel City Surge out of Pittsburgh. It's awesome to have a Pittsburgh team in the VLA. Of course, rocking the black and gold as every sports team in that city does. Couple familiar names. Joe Bortak is a middle blocker who's played for like 4 different VLA teams at this point. Was on the ECV team that won the East Division Cup last year. He is a monster. He's a Pittsburgh guy, so he's playing this tournament. Jake Zemba is a guy that I know, springy little lefty. He's a Pittsburgh guy, but lived in Chicago for a long time. Actually played opposite for Swede for several years before moving back to Pittsburgh. So that's cool. I know Sturgis played a little bit of Tier 2 action. They went to the Flow tournament that they hosted in Virginia. They've got how many points? Is it just one? They have 2? Let's see. They've got 2.
Yeah, two for the season. They've been active enough. They played in a handful of tournaments, but haven't been able to come on top. And I think that they haven't really fielded a roster as strong as they're fielding this time around. So this is a good opportunity for them to really make a name for themselves with that split. Because again, a handful of these guys were with Team ECV last year, and I know they're looking to really make that separation and show that they obviously they belong, but show what they can do.
Yeah. And I think that they will. I think that there's enough VLA experience and enough volleyball experience there, and they've played enough in the off season to feel like they're not coming into this event with like totally blind or totally like they don't know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
So
they definitely have a lot more experience than the team we're about to talk about next.
And the team we're talking about next is I think the newest or maybe the second newest team in the VLA, the Colorado Kingsmen. It's awesome to have a team in Colorado. I absolutely love that they've popped up. They do have 1 point in the database because they hosted a big tournament that they put a couple matches on the channel that they ended up winning, so they got a point from that. But as for actual VLA competition, they're jumping in the deep end with literally no experience. And although they've got a decent number of bodies, I don't recognize many of the names. And just from what we've seen historically, if you're a brand new team in your first event ever, it does not usually go that well historically. So I'm curious to see how they handle it. But it is awesome to have them. It's great they're making the trip.
Yeah, no, it's a good opportunity for them. I mean, they've been super motivated. Just took a little bit for them to kind of get their feet underneath them. It actually took for them to be able to get into the tournament. A name you're not seeing out there is the West Coast Brigade had to drop out. So it actually gave Kingsman the opportunity to join. And so they've been on the waiting list and whatnot. But the fact that they're in, I know they're super motivated. They're very excited. And it's exciting for the West Division because we're excited to kind of see some of these teams that branch out of Southern California. Yeah. I think the primary area is Southern California, as it should be, being the Mecca it is in the world. But, Colorado has a great representation now, and it kind of feeds into that, the expanse of we want VLA teams everywhere. So really excited about the Colorado Kingsmen and what they're going to be able to do this weekend because I know that they're very motivated.
Yeah, can't wait for their debut. I love seeing teams like walk into the gym, play a couple matches, and look around like, oh my goodness, look at how awesome this is. Like the sort of like childlike wonder of your first VLA tournament is really cool to watch, and it's motivating for us at the league to see people have that experience. So I can't wait to see them and talk to the guys and get to know who they are as a team. So looking forward to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, want to check out Pool C? This is a crazy pool. This is clearly the pool of death in this tournament. Very clearly the strongest top to bottom. Chicago Swede, the 1 seed, Milwaukee Dive, the 2 seed, and Las Vegas Team NV, basically the reigning champs of this tournament, but rebranded, reseeded, are the 3 seed. And this gives us a chance for some potential amazing rematches, but you can't sleep on the Kentucky Unicorns, the 4 seed, or Southside XP, the 5 seed either. I think that 4-5 match will be good. I think that either of those will give Swede a pretty tough time in that 1-4 matchup. But I think this is a 3-team race in this pool, and it is my favorite pool that I'm looking forward to watching the most.
Yeah, Dive and Team Envy, former Ruckus, have a little bit of a history. Obviously, Chicago Swede and Team Envy have a huge history. But then
this tournament last year,
even bigger than that is the Milwaukee Dive Chicago Swede history. I mean, you can't just put everyone like this in a pool, right? I mean, but no, it's fantastic because this is a huge storyline for all of them. I mean, Swede obviously beating Dive last year in the championship to get the promotion to Tier One. Swede losing the Central Division Cup last year to Team NV / Ruckus. I mean,
Going up
it's
2-0 in the final, getting reverse swept. Yeah, like that
yeah.
was
I mean,
like you said earlier, one of the best matches of the year. And
yep.
then I think Dive and Ruckus played at that tournament last year as well. I actually think they might have played twice. I think Dive might have played them in both pools and the semifinals.
Yep, I believe you're right. And yeah, Dive just kind of ran out of steam, having a little bit lighter of a roster than usual. And
Well,
actually,
that was their first event. That Central
yeah,
Division Cup last year was the first tournament
yeah,
Milwaukee Dive ever played. They absolutely balled out, tying for third, but they run into the buzzsaw that is Ruckus, I think twice. And
yep.
now they are going to get another shot at them. This 2 versus 3 game is the one I'm most excited about. We actually might even consider putting it public on the YouTube channel for everybody to watch. It's going to be that good.
Yeah, it's gonna be very very exciting to watch. So yeah, I mean, just breaking down all the teams and whatnot. Um, you know, Dive and Team MV, nothing new there. It's gonna be a battle.
There
They're
is a
both
little bit new with Dive that I think is worth talking about. They have made some moves this offseason.
yeah
Like I mean, we saw them last year. We saw their completely unique and different identity as a team. Like they went to they went to the final of the VLA Cup. They beat all these good teams along the way, playing a completely different style of volleyball, digging so many balls. They touch so many balls. They control the ball phenomenally well. Their offense isn't that flashy. It's not that fast. They don't serve the ball so hard. They don't block that many balls, but they touch everything. They're so frustrating to play against. Tyler Wills might be the most underrated player in the league. And if you've been watching by now, you know how good that guy is. This offseason, they've added a little bit. They get Connor Orion and Tomas Goldsmith from Team Pineapple, both Milwaukee guys. They bring in Mitch Perinar, who's a Lewis guy, a lefty at opposite who played a year overseas. He lives in Texas, but has got huge roots in the Midwest. And they've got some other choices too, because their one weakness last year for Dive was opposite. And now they've got some choices because Perinar is a baller. He's a pro. And Tomas also has some opposite experience, both in the VLA and overseas. So this Milwaukee Dive team is so scary. They will bend you to their will. They will bend you to their play style. And Tyler Wills will hit 800 against you, and there's nothing that you can do to stop him.
yeah, exactly. And hey, to bring up Tomas Goldsmith again, I mean, just having him involved with the Milwaukee team actually does. It's hard to replace Chandler North, who actually is injured at the time or at the moment, won't be playing. But if you're going to replace him with anybody, obviously Tomas is a huge addition, someone who could fill that role very well. So it's going to be really exciting to see this Dive team play. And talking about roster movement, you flip over to Las Vegas Team MV, and then now all of a sudden you got former Rising Tide middle Matt August,
August.
in my opinion, playing against them, Team MV in the West Division Cup. I thought that their weakness actually was in the middle. Our middles, I think, the Ascension middles definitely outplayed their middles, and so now that you're adding, Matt August at 6'9", very very experienced player, very athletic. I think that gives them just a little bit extra, and I think that's something that Joe Kaliakamo definitely needed with his team moving forward is just a little bit more firepower for him to get the ball to.
Exactly. So we talked about Joe Kaliakamoa and Team NV after the West Division Cup, where they finished in second. We talked about this team is so used to winning VLA Cup events. They've been so successful in the league's history, no matter what name they're playing under. Kaliakamoa, the reigning MVP of the tournament, but we were noticing in the final against the Rising Tide in San Diego that he lacked a little bit of trust in some of his point scorers, other than Michael Wexter, who is phenomenal and will be there on the right side for Team NV this tournament. But they're a little thinner at outside than we're used to seeing, only 3 guys. And I agree with you, Vince. I think it was rare to see them weaker in the middle, but that was an area where they got exposed a little bit against both Ascension and the Rising Tide in the final. And adding Matt August is a big boost. They've got Garrett Como, who might be the best libero in the league. They've got a bunch of middle options. They've got Joe K. They've got Wex. They've got James, Caleb, and Liam Maxwell on the outsides, who are all phenomenal. New name, reset points in the rankings, Team NV could easily come in and win this tournament again. They certainly have been there before.
Yeah, I mean, nothing takes away from it. A name doesn't take away the experience that they
Right.
have. I mean,
Right.
they can be called whatever, and this group is going to be very very potent.
And the
But
roster management skill. I think that's another thing that both Team NV and Emiola are both really good at under Christiana Mura is managing their roster and getting the bench guys action. But when it's not going well, bringing in the starters to rescue matches and win key games. They are really good at that and have separated themselves from the field in a lot of these tournaments with that method of success.
yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things that it doesn't get easier to do that. You can't always
Right.
just throw in Michael Wexter to go in and save a match for you, or Joe K. When he sits the bench and they have a Schmitty setting. The, it's the gap that they created initially. I feel like last year has definitely closed. I think that they are definitely looking for some answers, and I think that they have an answer with Matt August. I don't know if it's the complete answer for them, but at the same time, I feel like I kind of have an idea of what they need to do to progress. Will they do it for this tournament? I mean, it's going to be a tough one because I think that teams are a little bit more prepared for them than they were in previous years, and that team has pretty much stayed the same. It hasn't really. They haven't added a whole lot of new pieces, like we're saying, where other teams have. Milwaukee Dive throws in Tomash and Connor, both tier 1 players, significant for the success of Team Pineapple for years. And now Swedes improved their roster. It's not going to be easy by any means. It never is, but it's definitely been much more difficult this year for Team MV to go and take this tournament.
Yeah, that gap has closed. I completely agree. And I think the teams that watched the West Division Cup saw a little bit of a blueprint of what Team NV losing actually looks like, because it's not something that we've seen all that often. And it's something that I know that the Chicago Swede have absolutely been looking at, because regardless of who Swede, assuming that Swede gets past the Unicorns versus XP winner, which I think that they will, because Swede's roster is much better this weekend than it was in Indiana at the start of the season. Whoever Swede plays to win the pool, whether it's Dive or Team NV, Swede will be so motivated to beat either one of those teams. And the questions for Swede after their first tier 1 event was setter and opposite. They only had one setter, Jordan Smith. They only had one opposite, George Coogan, and those two did not connect. They have fixed that problem by getting Jack McGuire available, who we saw at last year's VLA Cup is amazing at the center position. He and Coogan go back forever. They connect phenomenally well. And they bring in another opposite, Isaac Sageman, who's played a little bit for the Buddy Bears in the past, but a bigger guy, hits a higher ball, and it's going to be easier for Jordan Smith to set. So I expect those, like McGuire and Coogan, to be one pair, and Smith and Sageman to be the other pair. And other than that, Swede is very much the same and good in every other area. Great libero, Eric Shizak. Great outside hitters, Bulava and Klosak are amazing. Very good options in the middle, a lot of size. Like Swede went out, and their only identifiable problems from the Indiana event, they have fixed them.
Yep, absolutely. And Swede was my pick to win the division at the beginning of the year.
I remember that.
And I feel like, I mean, I'll be honest, they're my pick to win this pool as well.
Really? I like that pick.
I have a lot of confidence in them. They play really well, and it's just the way that they play as a team. I think that every team has an identity, and they play that part very well. When you're playing Swede, even the guys that they've added, it really is still a Swede team. They didn't really change anything outside of anything. So, I mean, I just think that, and to bring up the next two teams, Kentucky Unicorns, Southside XP. Unicorns has had some good success. They won a tournament down.
Yeah, I think it was in Michigan. It was a big tournament that they won.
They won a really solid tournament. They had been racking up tier 2 points, which gave them the seed that they're at. Southside XP has looked okay in flashes, but I feel like the Unicorns are a little bit more potent than they are.
Unicorns do not sleep on that Kentucky Unicorns team. They've got these brothers, Corey and Casey Piper, like Cincinnati area kids, both ballers. And like in an unexpected way, I do think that Swede will beat them. I think Kentucky will beat Southside XP, no problem. But that Swede versus Unicorns match will be closer than everybody thinks.
Oh
Shout out
yeah.
to my boy Josh Daly as well, a Purdue kid that plays for the Unicorns. That team is good. The Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati sort of greater area is an underrated volleyball pocket. I think they've got a good thing going there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have such a great personality with Shane Green over
Yeah,
there running.
Shane's so awesome. I can't wait to see that guy. Old
Yeah, and
Chicago guy.
it's just one of those things where a person, a figurehead, kind of creates that chemistry for the group. The group becomes successful because of it, and I was told by a handful of teams that played against them how frustrating they are to play against
Yeah,
because they get hands on everything, they touch everything, and a team like that can really be potent against a team like Swede, who can at times can't necessarily manage the extended rallies as well as some other teams can. So if it comes into a ball control situation, Unicorns does have a pretty good chance. But if it does come into to power, I think that Swede will probably be able to take them on that.
yeah. I do like the Unicorns from what I know about them over are the last team in this pool, Southside XP, part of the Southside Extreme Performance Volleyball Club on the south side of Chicago here. They've got a little bit of tier two experience. I know they've played a little bit this offseason. This will be their first big VLA event. And I know they've developed, I think they've got a little bit of a rivalry with the Madison Inferno going. I know they played at that dive tournament in the fall and they played just last weekend. And Inferno's gotten the better of them so far, but I know there's been some fun like social media banter between those two teams. I think XP is a little bit of a feisty team. They're sort of more like a blue collar Chicago area team as far as an area like as far I obviously know it well. I live here. Has produced a lot of great volleyball players. This is more of a scrappier like a team like that where the players didn't come from the most traditional volleyball backgrounds, but will still produce good quality volleyball on the court. And they've got just enough experience coming in that I do think they'll be a factor in this tournament. Maybe though not a factor in this pool because this pool is so hard.
Yeah, I think that XP definitely had an opportunity to get some of the other potential four seeds in the pool,
Yeah,
but again, when it comes down to Unicorns, just they're already kind of moving along in the rankings, winning tournaments, winning matches. They definitely have a little bit more experience. But then you look at that potential second match for them if they don't win that, then you got either dive or envy, and that's going to be a really
yeah.
really
Good
tough
luck.
curve for them. So again, this is not the best pool to be in if you are a 5 seed.
Yeah, that 4-5 match is going to be pivotal for the Unicorns and Southside XP because yeah, like you said, the loser will take on the loser of Dive and NV to stay alive in the tournament, and that is not going to be a fun matchup.
No, absolutely not.
So Pool C, I think it's fair to call it the pool of death. I'm very excited to watch this. It's ridiculous that the seeds shook out this exact way, but it's going to produce some amazing volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to see these ones, about how it pans out.
All right, last but not least, Pool D. Pool D has got the only pool with no tier one teams. We've got Hawaii Emi Ola, the 1 seed, last year's VLA Cup champs. We've got the Cleveland Kong, and their debut as kind of a new brand, rebranded team ECV from last year's East Division Cup championship. We've got our photographer Todd in the chat. Todd is a legend. He's kind of put this team together, which is going to be awesome. And the Kong have got an Ohio battle in the first round. They've got the Columbus Crimson. We've got the Dallas Dogs, the 4 seed in this pool, who made their debut in San Diego. And then I think officially the newest team in the VLA, the Beer City Brewers out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, who I'm really excited to have. They have no points. They have never played a tournament together before. They've just started playing a couple scrimmages, having practices. I know they played against Michigan State's club team earlier tonight, so they're going to do what they can to get volleyball under their belt coming into this, but they are officially the youngest team in the VLA. We're so excited to have them.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, they are very excited and motivated to get out there and play. And some experience. I believe was it Sam Lottie?
Yeah, Sam Lottie's a great guy. I knew him when he played in college.
And I think he has a little bit of experience playing with Inferno. So I mean, yeah, this is a very fresh team, and I know we're going kind of 5-5 and work our way back up to 1, but
That's fine.
yeah, no, it's a good change of pace, But no, again, it's exciting to see these new teams pop up because they're representing a completely different area of the United States. Obviously, Grand Rapids, Michigan, I don't know a whole lot about the Michigan area volleyball outside of Mac essentially, but no,
I do.
it's cool. Yeah, exactly. You do. That's why you're here. But no, it's always exciting to see these new teams come in and just see how they fare because like we're going to talk about the next team, the 4 seed, Dallas Dogs, how they came in pretty much with nothing. Nobody knew who they were, and they played amazing at the West Division Cup. And it's really exciting to see the newcomers come in and produce. I mean, you don't want to see any team just come in and there's some team that they go 0-4. We don't want that. We want teams to come out, and we like to see when they actually compete against these other teams and show what they're worth.
Right. And everybody's going to do that. Everyone's going to put their best foot forward in their first VLA event, obviously. Yeah, the Grand Rapids community in Michigan is underrated. I think that they've got a beach volleyball community that not a lot of people talk about. They've got the Lake Michigan on the west side of the state there that produces a lot of decent, a lot of decent beach volleyball talent. But they're pulling they're pulling from sort of all over the state. They've got a couple Lawrence Tech kids. Lawrence Tech's a school in the Detroit area in Southfield. So I know a couple of the names on this roster. They've got a good balance of NAIA D3 college club talent from a little bit all over the place, and they've got a lot of bodies on the roster. I think like 15 guys, which is fantastic. So they're going to get a lot of those guys touches and figure out what works, and hopefully they can grab a couple points. So their first round matchup, though, will be a team that does know what they're doing by now, the Dallas Dogs, who surprised a lot of people in San Diego, playing some really good ball. Problem is they don't have all the same guys. No Tim Johnson, who really carried them at opposite in that tournament. So I'm curious to see what they do sort of offensively. No, Isaiah Faji as well, who was also really good.
Yeah, they're missing a few. They're missing I forget who their middle was. He was their M1 last tournament. And I mean we saw it firsthand. They beat us Ascension in the first set.
Yeah, they
25
did. They
to 13
smoked you
or
guys.
25 to 12. I mean, we couldn't do anything right against them. They played so well. And then we kind of recovered and we ended up winning the match. But Dallas Dogs is extremely deadly, and even more so because they are 2-0 against the team that is number 1 in this pool. Which, if they win this first match against Beer City Brewers, they're already
Take on Emiola again.
Yeah, and it's interesting how this kind of works out sometimes. I mean, obviously, there's nothing subjective about it. It all goes based off of points. It's not, we feel this team should be here or anything like that. That's why we have the system that we do, and they are just running into each other like that, and teams see each other more. It just happens. But yeah, so I mean, the fact that they carry a 2-0 record overall against the top team in their pool. It's a huge potential advantage for Dallas Dogs.
Yeah, so Dogs beat Emiola in like an instant classic match. I think it was like 19-17 in the fifth. Yeah, I'm looking at 18-16 in the fifth over Emiola in the first match of pools in San Diego, which was electric. And then they beat him again in a consolation match later in the tournament. So that history is there. I do think I do like the Dogs over the Brewers in the first round just because of experience. But this particular Dogs team, I'm not convinced has that same ceiling to beat Emiola again.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they are a little bit lighter going into this one. Do I think that they're going to go in and they're going to earn points? 100%. But
oh yeah,
do they go and steal this pool? That's going to be a tough one, and it really is for Emiola to lose. I think with the players that they'll have out there.
Agreed. So let's talk about the Ohio matchup before we talk about the Hawaiians there. Cleveland Kong. I'm interested, and we've got Todd in the chat who's popping in his standard hashtags as always, which we love to see. I don't know very much about this Kong team. I do remember that last year, Team ECV out of Cleveland, who same franchise now, went into this tournament. It was their first event in the VLA. They got dead last, and then they turned it around and won the East Division Cup. Nice matches. Yeah, Todd, who are these guys? The thing is, though, I don't recognize any of these guys. They're like with the split between ECV and now Columbus Crimson is there, and the Steel City Surge are there, and even like the Niagara Frontier, there's a little player overlap. It feels like this Cleveland team is totally different than the one that won the East Division Cup last year. And because of that, I have no idea how to evaluate them going into this.
Yeah, the only thing I could say is that Kong and Crimson have had a handful of battles already this year.
They have.
So the fact that they're going up against each other, In a way, slightly unfortunate for both teams because you definitely want to go into these big tournaments, 20-team tournaments. You want to see a team you played already 4 times this season in the first round. But, it works out the way it works out. Kong has had some success this year. They've grabbed a few points from, I think I want to say 7 or 8 points already this season and haven't played a cup yet. So the fact that they're out there winning matches in the Tier 2 format without requiring cup points, I gotta give them a little bit of credit here because they've produced so far. But again, they're going against a team that actually has beat them as well. And Crimson is a solid team, playing a lot. They're doing a lot of really good things. So again, like it's really kind of a toss up in a way, mostly because when you get some of those teams that play each other nonstop, they start to figure out each other's tendencies. They play each other a little bit different. Whether or not either of these two teams can go and beat an EMEOLA in the finals or in the pool finals, I don't know. But I definitely know that this is I'm going to say this is a 50-50 shot between both of these two teams.
I think it is too. I think it's totally 50-50. I like that. Yeah, I'm looking through the database. These two teams have played each other twice and they've split. They've been at a lot of the same events. They both got points. I know Crimson went to Madison over the weekend and got 4 points, which is huge. Kong and Crimson have played each other twice. They've split them. I have no idea how to pick that 2 versus 3 game. I think it's going to be a toss-up and great for fans of Ohio volleyball, and obviously I have VLA fans to watch that one. And the winner of that will take on the winner of EMEOLA and that play-in match, Dogs versus Brewers. This EMEOLA team looks pretty good. I think we've seen a lot of different versions of EMEOLA at different events in the past. They made their debut at last year's West Division Cup, were kind of average at last year's Central Division Cup, and then exploded into winning the VLA Cup last year. This EMEOLA team looks pretty darn good. Serge Nadazhdin might be the best outside hitter in the tournament. Maybe.
Yeah, you can never sleep on Serge. I mean, he's healthy and he's ready to roll. He is so good, and just his deceptiveness on his ball control. It's just because maybe it isn't as fluid as most, but the guy passes really well. He swings a lot of off-speed shots. It's really difficult to block him because he likes to chisel off blocks, hit half-speed shots, deep corners, and I mean he's just a very potent player. And so it will come down to how he performs and how he can lead this team.
I will tell everybody playing against EMEOLA right now, big number 22 on the outside. He will play L1. He will pass and hit on the right side in rotation 1. EMEOLA will set him every single ball on the right side in rotation 1, and you will not be able to stop him. He is absolutely automatic on the right side for a side out in row 1. It's ridiculous how reliable he is there.
Yeah, no, he's definitely as a teammate. Actually, him and I were just talking the other day about some of our old days, playing together against other teams. And when I used to play outside hitter, and there was actually a match we were just talking about that, we were halfway through the match as set 2, or going into set 3, and both of us were hitting over 500, rolling with that team. But the commentators were talking about it. But I mean, Serge, big fan of his, obviously being all tournament team last year in the VLA Cup, and doing what he did, being the champion in that. He's extremely dangerous, and I think that he's got the guys to win this pool with and again beat Dallas Dogs with the team that they aren't bringing. So
right,
a couple names on there that I don't recognize, and they could be they could be fantastic upgrades. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is EMEOLA is tried and true, and I think that it's going to be really hard for Dallas Dogs if they win that first match to beat them a third time.
Agreed. I think this is EMEOLA's pool to that 2-3 matchup is hard to pick. Honestly, that 4-5 matchup is kind of hard to pick, and then the matches for placement in this pool are going to be good ones. So I agree with you. I expect EMEOLA to come out of it, but yeah, you never know. That's why we play the pools on the court and not on paper, right, Vince?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't think I've ever predicted anything right. So
yeah, I wonder what our prediction success rate is on this show.
Yeah, I don't know, but I guarantee you, whatever we just said probably won't happen.
Well, it'll be fun to roast our own calls on next week's show when we wrap this thing up. All right, so let's take a look at the website one more time. So that we talked about all the pools, we talked about all 20 teams, which is ridiculous. Let's give you one more tour of the website so you know what to look at and know where to find some info. We already talked about the locations, 2 different locations. We talked about the schedule grid at the bottom of the page. We talked about live spectators. We talked about the broadcast. Here's kind of a list of all the teams, how many points they have, explains the seating a little more. Then you can click on them to take you to their pool and their schedule. This is the bracket pool format, which we already went over. And then we've got the pools. So this will be where you can update all the results as fast as possible. We'll put out the placements as soon as we know them, pools A through D, and we'll move on to the bracket. So bracket, 16 teams. You got to finish top 4 in your pool to make the bracket. That play-in round of the bracket will be on Saturday evening, and then the quarterfinals and on Sunday morning, and the finals on Sunday afternoon. So here's a list of all the bracket matches. We'll be keeping that up to date. And last but not least is, once again, we'll be naming an all-tournament team sponsored by Axio Training. Vince, tell them about that.
Axio Training, fantastic workout tool, a little circular object with a weight inside. And you shake it, really good for shoulder movement, strength. And we're really excited about the fact that they have sponsored our all-tournament teams. The West Division Cup, everyone was really excited to be the actual trainer, all tournament team player, getting one of them. And you can't say enough about that sponsorship. We're really excited to be involved with them.
Yeah, they're awesome. I know that product was a big hit to all the guys that earned it at the West Division Cup, and got some of those Team NV guys that earned an all tournament spot that are looking to do it again at this tournament. So if you make the semifinals and you have a particularly awesome tournament, you might just make the Axio Training all tournament team. So excited to name that on Sunday. All right, so we've got the schedule. We've got all sorts of information on the website. Everything that you can need is on the website right now. All the matches live on the VLA YouTube channel right here. Make sure you pick up a membership and check out the community tab of the homepage to find all the matches you're looking for. 43 matches coming up this weekend from Chicago. I can't wait.
Yeah, no, it's going to be extremely exciting. Obviously, like you said at the beginning, the largest VLA Cup event that we've ever had, and it's only the Division Cup. So I mean, we're building some great things here, and we definitely maxed capacity on this one. We can't wait for future events where we're hosting more. So I'm really excited to see the amount of participation from all the Tier 2 teams, and I just love where this is all going.
So do I. So I can't wait to be there. I'll be there on Friday for setup. I'll be there on Saturday and Sunday at both sites, making sure all the streams are going and commentating VLA all day, Saturday night and Sunday. So it's going to be awesome. You know where to follow along. Check out the VLA website right here on YouTube for all the matches, and we'll see you on Saturday morning and right back here next week for Around the VLA. Thanks for watching.